Hey everyone, welcome back to Ethos, where we explore the core principles and beliefs that shape our world, always aiming for that ethical, balanced perspective. As an immigrant from Nigeria who's made America my home, I bring a fresh lens to these discussions. And yeah, you'll hear that in my accent. It's all part of the journey. Remember, at the end of the day, we're all Americans, united in our pursuit of truth and understanding, no matter which side of the aisle we're on or where we started. The goal here is to provide a fair view on all topics, letting both parties see the full picture without bias or spin. Now, before we jump in, I want to mention something important about how I do reactions here on Ethos. Unlike most reaction channels that pause every 4 seconds and miss the bigger picture, I don't interrupt until I've seen a substantial portion of the clip. That way, we can really absorb the context and flow without chopping it up too much. It's why so many channels don't fully get it. This is part 1 of a full 2-hour interview, so I'll be holding off on adding my deeper views until towards the end, where we can tie it all together. And stay tuned for part 2 coming soon, where we'll continue the breakdown. Today, we're diving into a fascinating clip from Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes. This one's all about Nick's origin story, how a kid from the Chicago suburbs, fresh out of high school and rocking standard libertarian vibes like Ron Paul and PragerU, shows up at Boston University in the heat of the 2016 Trump-Hillary showdown. He's got his MAGA hat on, off-the-shelf Republican views, but things escalate fast. From door-knocking for Ted Cruz to getting radicalized on immigration by none other than Mark Levin and facing down campus threats just for supporting Trump. It's a wild ride through his ideological awakening, the media's grip on politics, and why demographics became his wake-up call. We'll unpack how this moment in history shifted his worldview from libertarian economics to a sharper focus on cultural and national identity. Stick around as I break it down, react to the key moments, and share my take on what this means for today's political landscape, exploring the divides, the common ground, and where we might find unity moving forward. Let's get into it.
Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you. I've heard about you.
I've heard about you.
So, well, thank you. I want to understand what you believe, and I want to give you a chance in a minute to just lay it out, not what you're pivoting against, which are a lot of the same thing. You know, I agree with you on some of the things you're pivoting against for sure, but what do you affirmatively believe? So I just want to stand back and let you explain it. But first, I want to understand how you got to where you are, how you became Nick Fuentes. So this is my understanding of your life arc, and tell me if I'm wrong. You show up at Boston University. You grew up in a suburb of Chicago, kind of working class, western suburb, and you show up at Boston University in the fall of 2016 at the height of the battle between Trump and Hillary. It's like this kind of pivot point in history. And you show up with a MAGA hat and you have a Trump hat and you have like basically off-the-shelf Republican views?
Yes.
And so describe what the views that you had then and then describe what happened.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was very political. I was reading a lot of the libertarian stuff, Austrian school, Chicago school, economic type literature, because that's what was popular at the time. If you went online in the early 2010s, that's all the conservative content there really was. That was the most extremely online type stuff.
Libertarian economics.
Well, yeah, basically kind of the remnant of the Ron Paul revolution.
Yes.
The Young Americans for Liberty, PragerU, which kind of skews a little more, I guess, conservative, but very basic small government, individualism, libertarian type stuff.
So you watch PragerU videos?
Oh, yeah. I was in the Prager Force.
What's that?
It's a Facebook group for college kids, and they promote the PragerU videos.
Wow.
To the college students and high school students.
So you really were a product of the moment.
Absolutely.
And how'd you feel about Trump?
Well, initially, I didn't like Trump. When the primary started in 2015, I considered him to be a statist.
Yeah.
Which sounds so ridiculous now.
No, a lot of people thought that.
Yeah. And I was a libertarian, so I saw him as a big government, 1990s liberal. When he was asked about healthcare, he said, well, we'll take care of everybody. And I said, I'm a Rand Paul guy, Ted Cruz guy. Those were kind of my people back in 2015.
You like Ted Cruz?
I was a cruise missile.
Does Cruz know this?
I don't think so, no. I was actually on his campaign.
You were on the Ted Cruz campaign?
I don't know if I was on the campaign, but I door knocked in a little village in Chicago in McKinley Park for Ted Cruz.
No way.
In the Illinois primary.
Did he write you a thank you note?
No, I didn't get a thank you. He lost, so I guess.
Yeah, he did. He did in a very humiliating way. Wow, that's amazing. So what happened?
So I, like everybody else in 2016, went through this ideological awakening. And first I shifted to Trump. And the first realization that I had is it started in 2016, actually, because the primaries, started in 15, around April or May, I think was the first announcements. And I had very negative feelings about Trump. And like I said, pro Rand Paul, pro Cruz. But when the actual Iowa caucus happened and the primaries began, I saw that Trump was dominating. And every night in the Super Tuesday, when they had all the big contests, one after the other, I remember the media was furious that he was winning one after the other. And I remember thinking to myself, like, structurally, if I'm a libertarian or a conservative and we want to change the country, we have to win elections. If you want to win elections, you have to bypass the media. I sort of had this realization that the media was really standing in the way. They were the problem. And I had this realization that all the conservatives and Republicans up to that point were afraid to take on the media. They, like Mitt Romney, would cower before them and were so apologetic and so weak. And so initially I said, I actually don't ideologically agree with Trump at all, but he will destroy the liberal media, or at least their monopoly on thought and opinion.
Yes.
And then a breakthrough can occur. So that was kind of the first hump. And I said, I could get behind Trump because he's a winner. He'll win for our side. And that was kind of the first big thing. And then as I listened to him more and more, his speeches and his rhetoric, I started to think about immigration.
Which you hadn't really considered before?
Never. And the reason why is because I was from a 95% white suburb. So the diversity had not really reached my corner of Chicago yet. Me and my family, not so much my family, they grew up in the city, but growing up in the suburbs, I was insulated from that. So it was just not even, it's actually, you're going to love this. I don't know if I've ever even said this on an interview before. I was listening to Mark Levin's show. This goes to show how normie I was.
Actually?
I listen to him every day.
You listen to Mark Levin every day?
In high school, yes.
Wow.
I was a fan. I loved his show. And I actually liked how he was kind of obnoxious and mean to his callers.
Yeah.
Vicious. And I liked that. I thought that was funny. But I'll never forget one show. He goes live and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound so good. I didn't really even think that America's becoming majority minority like that.
Wait, so you were radicalized on race by Mark Levin?
Yes.
Are you making that up? That's
a real story.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. He planted the seed at least. And then I saw a graphic on 4chan or Twitter, and I'm sure you've seen something similar. It said, this is what the map looks like, the electoral map. If only men vote, if only women vote, if only whites vote, if only non-whites vote. And it became very obvious what the electoral problem is. It's demographics. These immigrants are coming here. They're going to turn Texas blue like they turned California blue.
Yeah, I saw it happen.
Yeah, and you look at even the opinion polls. These people don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in the Constitution, the Second Amendment. As a libertarian, the things that are, and as American, things that are important to you, they don't believe, they don't understand these things. And so I said, that's another political obstacle. You've got the media, you've got immigration. So I'm thinking like, well, we're going to vote for Ted Cruz. He's going to be the constitutionalist. We'll vote for Rand Paul. He'll be the libertarian. But what stands in the way of political power for us? It's the media and it's immigration. So I said, well, we got to get Trump to beat the media, build the wall, deport the illegals. And once we set the country straight, then we can actually have our constitutional republic back. That was kind of the idea. And that's the mindset that I had going into college.
Amazing. So then what happened?
So I go to college and I'm just, at that point, a huge Trump supporter. And you got to understand, for me, for my generation, so I was 18. I turned 18 in August 2016. And to us,
That's
Trump...
amazing.
Yeah. Well, because we're like the first generation that was influenced by Trump coming of age in that moment.
No, I say it's amazing because when you're living in something, you don't appreciate its full significance. But to be 18 in August of 2016, so this really is, as you're forming your views and really yourself.
Yes.
In the middle of this. We'll admit that we are not the most disciplined snackers. When the pantry calls, we answer. It can be cruel, but what if there was a way to snack like you want to snack and not deal with the consequences? Heaviness, bloating. Well, there may actually be an answer to that. It's called Vandy Crisps. Brought to you by the same people who make the incredible Masa chips, Vandy Crisps were made with only heirloom potatoes, sea salt, and grass-fed beef tallow. Let me repeat, 3 ingredients: potatoes, sea salt, grass-fed beef tallow, 0 seed oils. Most food used to be made this way, simple, but then, well, the corruption you're highly familiar with allowed our food to become really poisonous. Vandy Crisps is pivoting against this ugly trend. They are delicious, by the way. You're not sacrificing taste just because they don't have ingredients you can't pronounce, especially the smokehouse barbecue flavor, next level. Vandy Crisps is American-made, no compromises. You feel satisfied, light, energetic, no crash, no sluggishness. It's awesome. Visit vandycrisps.com/Tucker. Use code Tucker for 25% off your first order. vandycrisps.com/Tucker. Code Tucker, 25% off your first order. If you don't feel like ordering online, stop at your local Sprouts supermarket and pick up a bag. They're good.
It's transformative. And so for us, he was like the savior of Western civilization. We looked at him as like and by we, I mean me and all the online kids, teenagers that supported him. We really believed the hype, like Teflon Don, like he could go into any scenario and win. Like he was unstoppable, unflappable. Nobody could score points on him. He just seemed like, they said you can't stump the Trump. Like he could not be stumped. And so he just had this aura of inevitability, invincibility. And I loved that. And so I went to Boston University. I got on campus in September and I was wearing my MAGA hat everywhere, in the dining hall, walking down the street. And it's a city campus. So you're walking down Commonwealth Avenue and, you're in the city of Boston, which is super liberal. And at that time, it's different than it was now. People were getting fired for wearing MAGA hats. People were getting punched in the face. It was like being a Trump supporter was out there actually back then. It was controversial. It was controversial everywhere, not even, just in liberal Boston. But so I was wearing my hat everywhere and I was just getting accosted constantly. In the dining hall, people would come up and yell in my face. Some black girl in a hijab ran up to me and said, "You know what you're supporting? You're racist." This, and I'm trying to get my pizza, I'm trying to get my oatmeal or whatever at the dining hall. This was happening constantly. And so I was going then on Twitter, and I had a small Twitter account with my real name and face, and I had, maybe 200 followers. And I'm posting about my experiences. And I caught the attention of a lot of people on campus for wearing the hat, for posting on Twitter, and they found my Twitter.
You've only been there like a month?
Less, weeks, maybe 3 weeks. This is starting to kick up. And I catch the attention of my peers, and they start going at me on Twitter and giving me death threats. "We're going to kill you. How dare you? If I see you, I'm going to beat your ass," that kind of thing. And this is my first experience with this. Now we're all kind of desensitized to it, but that was my first run-in with this intensity from the left. So I file a police report. I get real nervous. And, when you're a student, you can't really avoid other people. You're in a dorm room. Exactly. You're in the, so you're vulnerable. And anyway, long story short, so one of these guys from the campus libertarian group, Young Americans for Liberty, he reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm not going to say his name, but he goes, I go to a school in Boston. I'm from YAL." He said, "And I'd like to set up a debate with you and one of these people that's been giving you a hard time on campus," because they were doing a lot of events. He said, "Is that something you're interested in?" I said, "Absolutely." And so he goes around and he asks some of the bigger people that are antagonizing me on Twitter, and everybody says no. And he goes, yeah, no one's going for it. I said, well, can you try again? Can you? And so he finds one guy, and it turns out to be the student body president of the whole university.
Could be you.
Yeah, the senior, this liberal douchebag progressive. And he's the student body president of the student government there. And so we set up the debate.
All right, so far, solid interview overall. Tucker does a great job letting Nick lay out his journey without interruptions, which is rare these days and really allows for an authentic narrative to emerge. But constructively, I'd say Nick could dive deeper into how his views evolved post-college. It feels like we're left hanging on the what happened next after BU, especially with the debate setup teasing more drama. Also, while the personal anecdotes are gold, tying them more explicitly to broader policy impacts would have strengthened the narrative and given us a clearer sense of real-world implications. Tucker, maybe push a bit harder on those early libertarian contradictions for even more clarity, and perhaps explore counterpoints from the other side to round it out. Still, eye-opening stuff that highlights the raw energy of 2016 politics. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share if you've had your own ideological shifts, like if this sparked something for you, and subscribe for more reactions, where we keep it fair, thoughtful, and focused on the ethos that binds us all. Don't forget, this is just part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on Ethos. Stay curious, stay engaged.